Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast, Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Now streaming on all major podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that has given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a veteran story. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Then make sure you go to the website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check us out, see what we're all about. There is a merchandise tab. You can go in there and get you a cool shirt, maybe a hat. I don't know, maybe you're into hoodies or something like that. They got cups. There's all kinds of goodies, but help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, a big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project. They're out there doing some amazing things. Be sure and go check them out at their website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com.
Major Lee Stuckey. We've been blessed to bring in thousands and thousands of veterans and first responders and save hundreds from suicide. We don't want to be a handout, and we want to be a hand up with our four pillars, which are physical, financial, emotional, and for me, most importantly, spiritual, and give them a good, healthy foundation in a safe, sober environment for a 4-day event.
Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps veteran service organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. All right, I got my special guest here, Alan Stark, Army veteran. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I can't complain. I'm sitting back here. I got Ton Tavern behind me today, so I figure I'd represent. And they're going to be building the new Ton Tavern in the near future up in Philadelphia, so it should be pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Now, Alan, we met down at the A Hero event. We just saw a commercial for them, but that's how we met up, and you volunteered to do your story, so I'm very excited about it.
Yes, I am as well, and it was a pleasure to meet you as well, and keep the bond going from there. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, let's kind of start at the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? What was that like? And then what drew you to military service?
So, childhood was a little bit rough from the ages of 1 to 6. I was abused mentally, physically, emotionally. I was then put up for adoption when I was 7, which is kind of a cool story. When I was a foster kid, I was in foster homes throughout that process. But the foster home I did come to, I had, which is now my grandmother. She was my foster mom at the time. Her daughter and her son-in-law adopted me, so that she became my grandmother. Gave me a second chance of life. I adored her. I loved her with everything I had. It was me and my sister were both adopted together into a family that already had 2 other sisters that were in the family. So the total of all in all, I have 4 sisters with the adoption.
Wow.
And then other than that, we between 8 and 9 just did my thing as a kid, trying to figure out what life's about again. Finally had a good stabilization. About 10 or 11, well, it was about 11 years old. I ended up moving to Florida. We lived in Colorado in a place called Canyon City, about 35 miles southwest of Carter Springs. But I was born there. Then we moved to Florida for 2 years down in Merritt Island, Melbourne, Cocoa Beach area, where I did lose my dad that was a Vietnam vet when I was 18. There was a book and poems that he wrote and put out that were never published. They were just out there. I took the time to read his book about his Vietnam service and what that was all about.
Right.
and at the age of 13, but so around 16, 17 is when I read it. I said, I want to, and I had a shadow box as well. And I said, I want to implement what he did, or
Mhm.
live his life the way he wanted to live his life, and do it for him, but also for me as well. It was a change. Just coming out of high school, enlisted when I was 18. Ended up leaving the basic when I was 19, so it was offset. But that was the main thing, is to support him and what he had for a mission for us in the family.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. You know, you talk about adoption and those types of things. Both of my kids were adopted, so adoption's a great thing. If anybody out there, for the listeners, think about it. It's you can help some kids out. So, but anyway, sorry, I was throwing that in there.
You're good.
Uh,
You're good.
so you were 18 when you joined up, and then where did you go to basic?
I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I enlisted as a 62 Bravo, which
Hmm.
is heavy equipment repair. So I
Okay.
went to Fort Leonard Wood for both basic and AIT.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, thinking back to boot camp, what was that experience like for you? I mean, did you enjoy it? Was it tough? You know, what going back as an 18-year-old, what was that like?
I I went through our program JRTC, so I kind of already had a good grasp on things a little bit, but it
Right.
was it's still a life changer and a game changer. There was a lot of us that ran our mouths a lot when we got to basic training. A lot of them weeded out because they failed or whatever. But it was just finding the motivation and mental toughness to be able to get through it. Because
Hmm.
the main thing is to break you down and rebuild you back up. And I kind of understood that philosophy. And honestly, I needed something to keep me motivated. It was a big deal for me. Found out I was going to have a daughter while I was in basic, so
Oh, wow. Okay.
it's a life changing event. So, um, and like I said, when I was in basic, I had a hell of a time qualifying. I really did. It was cold. It was -5, -10 degree weather in the foxhole, trying to qualify. Um, and I lost my grandfather the 2 days before that happened.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so they took my weapon off the range, told me either you can recycle, go to the services, or you can stay here and finish. And then, well, long story short, I got back in the foxhole and then hit 38 out of 40. So
Oh, wow.
overall, it was a very well experience. I think I was meant to do and go the path I did.
Yeah.
I did graduate within my class level, so nothing fancy, just normal graduate from basic training. So
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that. That's how I was too. I just, like, what do they call it? General population. That was me.
yes,
I tried to hide as much as I could, but yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. So
yeah,
then you went from there basically across the street to for AIT then.
yes, yeah. So it was we had 2 days off, basically 2 days to rotate real quick, and then get our gear over to the AIT and start AIT over there. Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 buildings down that we had to move, so it wasn't nothing big.
Oh,
So
that's good.
yeah,
And then what was that like going into AIT now? Because if I'm not mistaken, you guys still have drill instructors around or drill sergeants around, but it's not quite as intense as boot camp, correct?
that is correct. So we had drill sergeants all the whole tenure I was there.
Yeah.
Um, they do get on you for the first 2 weeks when you go to IT. Then it kind of get a little bit more privileges
Hmm.
within the entity, but we still got to live within the standards. Do everything like we're supposed to, act like a soldier, um,
Right.
maintain our bearing and go to school and everything. But ultimately, yes, it was a little bit more chill at that point. Yes.
Okay. Now, now, did you have any experience or whatever in the field you were going into, or was it kind of all brand new for you?
It was all brand new for me.
Okay.
I was given few options. I said, well, my dad was a mechanic. Maybe I'll pick up after him, but he was never a heavy construction equipment mechanic.
Gotcha.
But I did learn a little bit. But it was just a new path for me all the way around.
Yeah.
Being a mechanic and picking up the drive because when I was a kid, I had ADHD, and a lot of it was hands on. And
Hmm.
I said, what's going to give me more of a challenge? And it seemed like the mechanics would give me a better challenge.
Right. Now, was it fairly easy for you as you were going through the course?
Um, Kind of, yeah. It got very simple towards the end. In the
Yeah.
beginning, when we were doing all the wiring schematics and doing the air over hydraulics, I
Mm.
got a little bit stuck on those. But other than that, end up putting in extra time and effort to understand
Yeah.
the mechanics behind it all. So I did put extra time in. Didn't come to me all naturally. I had to do the work and put the work in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And now, how long is that school?
That school was 8 weeks. 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Okay.
So 8 weeks for basic and 8 weeks for AIT.
Gotcha. And okay, so at that point, then where did you get a break? Like, get to be able to go home and visit before you went on to your duty station?
So when I first enlisted, so I was Army National Guard. So
Okay.
the first 2 years while I was in, basically I went back home. I worked for Walmart. I was a Walmart retail associate for eight years, total of 10. I did
Hmm.
go back, did my National Guard time, went to college on that. We
Yeah.
actually fought some fires over there in Durango, Colorado. That
Oh,
was in
wow.
2003. 2004, we had some fires we had to deal with. We were also called up for other disasters within the state of Colorado. And then after that, um, then I started transitioning. That's when I deployed was 2005.
Okay. Well, let's kind of walk through a little bit of those the experiences that you had in the National Guard. I mean, you're going to school, you're doing the part-time thing on the weekend type of deal, and then you're getting called up to go help with the fires and things like that. So, what was that all like?
It it was like, oh crap, here we go. What are we? What I'm not even trained in fire management or anything
Right.
like that. I was like, what are we gonna do? Like, there's not much I know what to do. Not saying common sense, you don't know how to deal with a fire, but at the end of the day, that's not what I was training for. That's not what I was
Right.
supposed to be intel for. But overall, it felt pretty good. Just to be able to get on a mission, do something, and feel like you're needed for something. That the
Right.
mission was always first. That I placed the mission first,
Hmm.
regardless of the situation. We end up going into security to stop looters and stuff going into the
Mm.
properties and
Yeah.
getting houses and stuff, that kind of stuff. So
Okay. And now, how long? Because that when you do that, you're going active for X amount of time, correct?
yes, so it was 60 days. It was a 60
60
day
days.
stint. It was up and down. They rotated us, but it was a 60 day stint of what they did for us. So it was from the beginning of the fire to the end of the fire until everything was out, and then we were
Right.
released from there.
Now, what were the things that you were seeing when you were in the fire? Like, did you see all the devastation and things of that nature?
Well, I just saw a lot of the debris, what it left behind, what there was
Right.
not any more of, where it burned. I didn't really see any homes or anything look destructive. It was more land that was
Right.
destroyed and scorched. So
Gotcha. Man, it's still a very impressive thing to see the fires, how much damage can actually be done.
yeah,
And it's just amazing, and how fast they'll grow and just take off.
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah. And then you said now you did more than one time going to help with fires in different places.
No, so that was just one stint that we did. There was
Okay.
another stint that I did that I was mobilized for. I think it was 6 months. But I
Okay.
was at one of the Air Force bases in Denver, Buckley Air Force Base,
Hmm.
and I worked as security at the front gates. They were doing some construction stuff, and I ran security at the front gate, basically doing checking licenses, checking vehicles, make sure there's nothing
Right.
in going out, that kind of stuff. So I was more security element when I was up there, and I did that. That was a cool job. I met some good people up there. Another good thing is I was able to meet the Denver Broncos before I deployed. I met the whole locker room. met Jason Elam. Found out Jason Elam's brother was deployed the same time we were going out. He
No
was a punter,
kidding.
he was a punter for the NFL and for the Denver Broncos. I met a lot of the Tom Nalen. You name it. That year we saw him.
And
But
that was
that was
because they were coming on base to see everybody, or like to do
no.
things,
I
or
had a guy. So I had one of our Joes. He was doing the football leagues, and
yeah,
he would do it for like a fun deal. And then he says, "Hey guys, I know what I can do. I know the Broncos. I know Fred Fleming. Fred Fleming is like the sports coordinator or whatever
right.
for the backside of the Broncos." He says, "Well, I can get you guys in there, and you can go meet all the Bronco players." Well, long story short, we ended up rolling up, and this kid kind of I don't think we're supposed to be here. So the guy came out, Fred Fleming came out, and he says, "Going to help you guys with? Well, we're here to meet a Joe that said to come here, and we were going to be able to meet the Broncos, and we were in uniform and everything." And he
Yeah.
says, "I don't know who this kid is, but okay. But hey, how about you guys come with me?" So ended up taking us through the whole entryway. Went back, and they were in the locker room after their practice. It was
Wow.
still preseason. Met Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice was part of the organization at that
Oh,
time before he
yeah.
retired. It was his last stint with the Broncos before he retired. But it was a very good thing to meet them, especially when we knew the deployment was right in our back pockets when we were about to go. So it was a
Yeah.
pretty good tenure of meeting all that. And it was a very boost. It boosts my morale a
Oh,
lot.
yeah.
Happened.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Wow, that's really cool. Got to go in the locker room, check everything out.
yes.
Man, you don't get that every day, do you?
No, you don't. No, and I've always been a diehard Bronco fan. I'll bleed orange and blue if I need to, but also bleed red. So, yeah, either way.
I like it.
Yep.
Um, all right. So at that point, now did you do deployment in the National Guard?
We did deploy in the National Guard. We were connected to the 54th Combat Engineers out of Germany.
Okay.
We did go from '05, so we trained up in Fort Riley, Kansas.
Hmm.
So I'm going to talk about a little bit of train up that we did.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
We were They were saying we were going to go as MPs, not in our job field. So they were training us as MPs in Fort Riley, basically putting our other jobs aside and learning how to do the security, how to stack,
Right.
how to clear rooms, how to just basically do MPs.
Right.
So we did that for 2.5 months, and that's the thing. When you deploy in the National Guard, it's like 15 months, 16 months away from your family. So we're
Yeah.
already 2.5 months in, doing our training, getting ready to deploy. And this time it's already October. So it, it takes a lot out of you because you're transitioning from a civilian sector into the military again, and it's kind of unique of how it goes down because some of these brothers and sisters you only know weekends or 2 weeks or
Right.
whatever, and you got to build a bond in between that time. That's why it takes a little bit longer to train the guard to get there. But we did train up and we did deploy in 2005.
Okay. Uh, and now, where did you deploy to?
So we flew into Kuwait, in
Hmm.
Al Yasaleen, where we trained a little bit more for about 3 weeks. No, about 2 weeks. We were with the 54th Combat Engineers. We trained with
Hmm.
them, did our training tests and drills, and then we end up into theater 3 weeks after that. So we went to Ramadi, Al Assad, Iraq first. We landed in Al Assad.
So you
They
flew to
said,
Al Assad?
yeah, we were in Al
Okay.
Assad first. And then we had some of our other guys convoy in. But come to find out, we were going to be doing our job when we hit boots on ground. So we found out we're going to go back to maintenance, recovery. We're working with route clearance, working with EOD. It was our whole pendulum switched once we were about to go in theater. So then we had to
Wow.
put back on our other hats. Okay, now we're going to be mechanics, where we're going to have our operators, we're going to have everything else like that, and do what we're supposed to be doing. Um, So
That's
yeah,
amazing to me. So it's just wild that they train you for one thing, right? And getting ready for the deployment, and then you get there and they're like, "Oh yeah, we need to do something different.
yeah,
Go back to your regular job."
it was pretty crazy. And it was sometimes it would piss us off and it would upset us. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Does anybody know what we're doing? What are we doing? So there was a
that's
lot of those questions.
that's like
Um,
the typical military, it's the hurry up, do something, and then, oh, what are we gonna do? And it's just that sit around and wait, and then
yes,
last minute they make that decision.
yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, gotta love it. All
Yeah.
right, so tell me a little bit about the deployment if you don't mind.
So the deployment, it was a little rough in the beginning because we ended up finding out we weren't going to be staying at Al Assad.
Hmm.
And we left on chocks from Kuwait, and our whole unit wasn't in Iraq yet. So we had another element that was getting ready to hit the chalk behind us.
Hmm.
One of the buses did turn over. It killed one of our soldiers, and then wounded four other service members.
Whoa.
So that was hard. So right off the bat, we already lost one of our own.
Yeah.
Um, and then we fell into equipment that was. So you usually want to be pretty good strength. You want to be in the green when you have all your equipment.
Right.
Well, we fell into 22% strength equipment that was broke down. That didn't have the right armor kits on it. It was
Oh God.
it was a it was a shit show, is what it was. So we had to get all this
Wow.
equipment from Al Assad, because we're a vertical engineer unit. So we have the dumps, we have the scrapers, we have the loaders. So we had to
Hmm.
get all this equipment from Al Assad into Ramadi. And we already heard Ramadi was being a really, really deadly zone at that point. So we didn't
Yeah, we
know
still
what.
considered the Wild West at that point,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. So when we got there, it was blazing every day. Even if we were at the camp setting things up, we still had stuff blazing. Mortars going out, mortars coming in,
Hmm.
rockets going in, going out. It was a whirlwind from Al Assad from Al Assad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But we ended up getting to Ramadi. We set our motor pool up, set up shop. We fell into we stayed at a while they were college billets, for the Iraq. I mean, they were college dorms, so we had to subdivide them with wood and make our own rooms and stuff with it. But
Mm.
they were little huts, so we did that. And then a lot of my mission while I was in theater, I was a Hemet wrecker operator recovery asset mission. So we had two teams that ran two separate wreckers, on
Oh,
each
okay.
mission. They were up moving on mission. A lot of our missions were support missions. When we did like route clearance, went with the route clearance teams out,
Hmm.
moving goods to a different location, or even moving our equipment to different locations to rebuild.
Right.
And there was a few spots I went in Iraq. I went to Raw, and then Raw was my last area, which was COD North. That was one of my last missions I had to do. It was a 3-month stint. I
Oh,
was
wow.
there as a senior mechanic on site. I had four of the
Hmm.
mechanics with me, and we worked on all the equipment over there, make sure they can get their mission done, but also go out with them on all their missions as well with the Hammer Record if they need any help or assistance.
Now, when you talk about the wrecker, real quick, is it the one that kind of looks like a semi truck type of
Yes,
thing?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly. And it's got the crane. It's
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
speed. It's got everything you need. It's got the bands, everything you need to do a combat hasty hookup and get out of the kill zone.
Right.
Or any vehicles that were blown up, we got them out of the kill zone. It was a very it was a enduring job, is what it was, because
Hmm.
we became a target because they
Oh,
knew
right.
we were an asset to that convoy. So they were targeting all of our cargo hemmets and then our hemmet wreckers. So we didn't know if we were going to be hit or not, and it's very hard to play to do security when you're one of the main assets. So
Right. Yeah.
we had to rely on our gun trucks and everything else that was behind us and in front of us lay down security once we were dealing with another piece of equipment.
Right.
So we did do a lot of that. Dealt with them blowing up the IEDs with EOD. And then I started doing some night missions with the Marines. The
Oh, no
Marines
kidding.
loved our wreckers, and we went on missions with them.
Okay.
And so with that happening, they I enjoy it with the Marines because it's a no BS zone. You just do your job, you hit your times, get home,
Yeah.
whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, I felt very rewarding to go with the Marines. About 45% of our missions were with the Marines, and
Okay.
it was with First Mardiv, Second Mardiv, 7th Battalion. But ultimately, we were very good contact because they didn't want to take their 7 tons out; they wanted to
Right.
take their HIMMETs out. So we ended up taking the HIMMETs. We've always, yeah, it was a crazy deployment. That's all I can really tell you. And
Yeah. And now you deploy for a year, correct?
yes, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
So in theater for a year.
Yes.
Okay.
And also I was in Ramadi at the camp. There was a mortar direct fire that came in within 10 to 12 meters of a lot of us and knocked us down. Or it was if they would
Hmm.
have hit any closer, it was about 8 feet away from our oxyacetylene tanks,
Oh
and
my gosh.
that really would have put a starburst on all of us if that thing
Yeah.
hit. Um,
Holy cow.
so we took a direct hit there. Took hits all the time. And we lost out of our battalion with the 54th. We lost 36 soldiers due to suicide bombers, and due to VBIDs, due to
No kidding.
IEDs, due to small arms fire. We had a female sniper that was in Ramadi that was picking soldiers off, or Marines. She was, and they finally got her. But it was definitely a hot zone when we were there. So
Right.
there was no sleep for the weary. It was always, you better be ready to go. You better go.
Right. Now
Um,
what camp were you at while you were there?
I was at
Do you
Camp
remember?
Ramadi. It was
Camp Ramadi? Okay.
yep. It was so there was Long Island. We were
Hmm.
at the main camp in Ramadi.
Okay. And
Um,
that was right before the split in the river.
yes,
Correct?
yes,
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
yep. And then yeah, it was that's right after Fallujah. They went into Ramadi and they tried to do everything they could. We had small arms from jets flying in, doing call sector fire. Uh, we've seen it all. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's hard to see or fathom what I did go through and say, man, I don't know. Just being with the guard and deploying with the guard, like I feel like there's some entitlement or whatever gone from us because we
Yeah.
don't do this consistently all the time.
Right. Yeah.
It's a train up deal, and we've already been away from our families. By the time it's all said and done, it's almost 14 months by the time we've been away from our families.
Holy cow.
So, and then, um, long story short, is that we did our mission. Um, we trained up the next rotation, got our stuff packed up. And then
Hmm.
we rolled out and went back to the stateside. Um,
Yeah.
and it was a definitely challenge. I got a lot of memory stuff from that. I've seen a lot of things.
Hmm.
I also saw a Marine at one of the outposts get completely sniped in the back of the head. I've seen
Oh,
it.
jeez.
And it's just it's hard to see some of these things sometimes, or it's hard to fathom.
Oh, yeah.
I try to now like look at it's been a few years since I've been out. It's been almost 10 years,
Yeah.
and for me to look at some movies now, to kind of understand what we went through, because some of the things I forget because I didn't want to remember
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
it. But ultimately, that's what happens. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that
when you so as you're transitioning back, and I've talked with active duty guys and stuff from around that time frame as they're coming back, there wasn't a whole lot of I guess therapy or ways to cope with it and those types of things. So how was it in the National Guard?
It was the same way.
Okay.
It was the same way. It was so some of us were pretty effed up from over there. We
Yeah.
were pretty bad. Um, they didn't really have anything. They had the VA on site,
Hmm.
but we didn't really want to say anything because we wanted to go home. We've
Yeah.
been already gone away from our families for 14 months. We didn't really want to go into much, but you're right. There was not much clarification of how to take care of it. The
Yeah.
clarification was pretty limited of what we had. And not only that, we heard of things that were happening with commands, with soldiers coming up front. Hey, I got mental going on, and there's a lot of stuff happening. Once we did figure out the assistance that can be happen, that we're
Right.
looked at like, oh, you sissy, you can't deal with nothing, and that kind of stuff. It was
Right.
kind of hazing us, is what it was.
Yeah.
Even if we wanted to bring up a situation, what we dealt with. So there's years that we went without saying anything. Um,
Right.
but we're dealing with the stress, dealing with the problematics that we had. But other than that, we learned how to cope with it. But we still want to get the help and the care that we need.
Right. One of the things that I find very interesting is, as in the National Guard, when you deploy, you come back, you don't get those services the same, and just like the active duty guys, you're not getting the help that you need. And
Yes.
then you're having to go into your regular jobs again.
Yes.
And that transition can't be an easy transition. There's got to be, days that are very, very bad walking into that.
And you're absolutely correct. I was fortunate in my situation because I ended up transitioning back into my job for about not even 30 days. And
Okay.
then I was asked to go on a specialty mission or a specialty duty MOS call that had active and guard. Pretty much, I was active at that point.
Got it.
I ended up going from the guard side of the house to Title 10 orders, and I was called up to do a unit that was called the Word Tradition Battalion. It was stood up in 2007. They started it because of Walter Reed, with all the crap that happened to Walter Reed, with all the room style and what was found. So
Right.
it's knee jerk reaction to the U.S. to the Department of Defense. Well, what do we do? How do we fix this?
Hmm.
So then they started making units with inside the like Army bases, Marine bases, or whatever.
Right.
Um, but I did help stand that unit up
Okay.
because it used to be a medical hold where soldiers would go in there and they'd be in a transition period of when they're
Right.
waiting for the Army to make a decision or the VA to figure out the ratings or whatever's going to happen, vice
Yeah.
versa.
Now, is that program, is it similar to Wounded Warrior? Wound.
Um, no, no, it is and it isn't because we're
Okay.
still in the service. It's Warrior Transition Battalion. Basically, you're still in the military. You still got to
Hmm.
follow the rules, do your medications, no drinking because of medications going all over the
Right.
place. It was a very complex job.
Hmm.
I was
Interesting.
a direct line supervisor. I was a cadre. I was an E5 first off when I started the position,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then so the floodgates opened up from the other units, putting their wounded with us. There was anywhere
Hmm.
from burn victims to missing limbs, missing arms,
Oh,
um,
wow.
head injuries, shot head injuries,
Hmm.
any type of injuries they're dealing with from a combat or if
Right.
non-combat. So we had our flavor of different things that were happening in that unit. Um, and I took a direct because it wasn't for everybody. You have to have some
Yeah.
type of passion for these families, the service member that's going through these problems. You got
Yeah.
to be
Absolutely.
like a sponge to them and be alert to what's going on because
Hmm.
not only could they commit suicide, they can be homicidal, they can do something stupid, get on alcohol, get on meds. Then it
Yeah.
ultimately comes to me because I'm not doing my job to ensure your safety, make sure you're following the guidelines because you're on medications now, a lot of medications. Um,
Yeah.
and I was also the financial NCO in there. So basically, I helped the service members with their finances,
Okay.
Helped them with job placements, helped them with resume writing, helped them with schooling, getting their stuff in school. Worked with them with their MEB, the MEB process, the medical
Hmm.
evaluation board process, the VA process. We helped them with their paperwork, writ commander statements.
Wow.
It was a countless hour job. It was around the
Yeah.
clock. We had a phone attached to us. That phone goes off. You better be in your car. You better be doing something. Figure out what's going on. It
Yeah.
was always it was a very microscopic unit. It
Hmm.
was a hard unit in the beginning. Like we were getting flooded. Like our caseloads were only supposed to be between not even 7 to 9 soldiers at
Yeah.
a time. So 7 to 9 soldiers, but no, our squads are holding up from 18 to 26 soldiers,
So
and
for
these aren't
one, for
regular
you, the
enlistment.
one in charge of that squad, right? That
Yes,
squad leader, you had
yes,
18 individuals. So you basically had almost a platoon size
yes,
element.
yes. At times we did.
Wow.
Yes, but there were times with we had the major problem children from other units. They were
Yeah.
like they were the dump offs into our unit. That was an easy way for the command not to have to take them to the
Uh,
range and redeploy them. So they put them in our units, and then we're stuck at picking up all the pieces. Um, but there was a lot of stuff I dealt with, endured. Almost watched a soldier kill himself with shooting up his medication. What my platoon sergeant that I served in Iraq was a
hmm.
homicide situation. And he died, and I was over him at the time. And then
Holy cow.
suicides, family suicides,
Hmm.
a lot of stuff that compiled and triggered a lot of things that happened in that unit. It was a countless time. Like I said, I wore so many hats in that unit. I felt like I did a lot of good too. I had soldiers
Oh
that had
yeah.
cancer. Excuse me. I had soldiers that had cancer, and then also a tumor on his brain.
Oh wow.
And there for his last breath, pretty much, and make sure he was good. Yeah, ultimately, it took a team, and there was some
Right.
cadre that should not be in, that should have been there because their compassion levels. Because in the military, you don't you always have that one straightforward military bearing.
Right.
Compassion's not really there. Suck it up, drive on.
Hmm.
But ultimately, what we were dealing with, it was a mess.
Wow.
But I did that. I did that job for 4 years
Oh
straight,
wow.
and
4 years.
4 years, and then I took a break from that.
Uh-huh.
Then I went over to be an instructor for it was PLDC, now it's WLC, Warriors Leaders Course.
Okay.
So it's basically the first leadership step for an NCO in the military, in the Army,
Right.
to go to. So I was at the schoolhouse for 2 years.
Now at that point, did you get promoted to staff sergeant? Is that what it was, or?
Yes, I was
Okay.
promoted to staff sergeant through 4 months before I left that unit. I was promoted.
Okay.
And then from there, I then went to the schoolhouse, instructed. Then I was recommended. I was recommended by the battalion commander and the battalion sergeant major to come back to the Warrior Soldiers Battalion because of my success rate. So
Oh wow.
then they rewrote my orders, brought me back in the WTB, and I was basically started again. Worked with the cadre, dealt with
Hmm.
soldiers again. There were some changes that changed too.
Yeah.
So there was a lot more making sure our blocks, make sure everybody's covered, that kind of thing. But
Right.
ultimately, it was a very it wore out my marriage. First off, I was married. Um,
Yeah.
I was married before I deployed.
Hmm.
My daughter was only 6 when I
Right.
first got home, and then dealing with this unit, like my family was tanked. My
Right.
son was born right after I got home. They were tanked.
Hmm.
My spouse took a lot of crap from me.
Yeah.
I was not ever tuned into them because I had a bigger mission to deal with, and I
Hmm.
was always put their worrisomes on the back because I had a bigger problem to deal with. Um,
Yeah.
and I pretty much wrecked my marriage that way.
Right.
And then then I decided there was one day while I was in that unit. I had a soldier come tell me. He was in the warrior games and stuff, but he went through the process. He said, Sergeant, I've known you for a long time. Seems like you're losing your edge. Seems like there's something going on, but I think you need to look at some help. And then my spouse was saying the same thing. She says, you're wrecking everything. Mentally,
Yeah.
you were checked out pretty much. You need to go get help. And at that point, I said, man, this is my lifeblood right now. Like, do I want to take that chance to go say something? So it took me a little while to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
I chewed on it for about a month. I said, I looked at everything I did and all of my accomplishments. I said, I'm pretty much worthless if I can't take care of myself. How the hell am I going to help another Joe out?
Yeah.
I can't. So
Yeah.
I took part of that recipe as well, and I ended up going through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with the board, starting with my MAB, the VA, everything marrying
Right.
up. Ultimately, it took me 8 months to get everything back. I was
Okay.
already 14 years of service. So I got 2 retirements. I ended up getting one from the National Guard, and I also got one from the Army.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
so I got 2 retirements. They retired me a day early from the Guard, and then retired me the day of out of the Army.
No kidding.
I ended up getting 60% with the Army. Then it was 90% with the VA. I
Okay.
was pretty ticked off with the system at the time, especially with the PTSD portion of what I did do. It
Mm-hmm.
only came in at 10%, and I was not happy about how that came out.
Yeah.
This has got to be wrong. With all my stuff that I had in my records, all my mental health notes, this is
Mm-hmm.
absurd. So 2 years after I got out, I then appealed it. I was pending an appeal in 2016. It was 2014 when I got out. In
Okay.
2016, um, I was starting to go down a dark hole. Like,
Right.
I was on a lot of meds. I was on 23 different medications.
Ooh,
My neck, my
man.
back, my shoulder, my head. TBI, had a traumatic brain injury from the blast.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. So I was dealing with a lot of that on top of the stress from the WTB, on top of my own stress.
Mm-hmm.
It all just compounded. In 2016, I was on Ambien. It was in the evening. Both my kids were in the house. My spouse was in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled out my 45, started cleaning my 45. Um, I then had to do the attempt to try to shoot myself with the 45 because I was so numb. But at the
Wow.
last minute, there was something that hit, and I pointed the gun down last minute, grazed my leg from it. The gun did go off in the house.
Yeah.
My kids were in there. Like I said, all I remember is like I'm back in combat. My ears are ringing. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just. It's bad.
Yeah.
So long story short, there. I then went to a PTSD inpatient program in Denver, Colorado, with the VA. And during that tenure, that's when they worked on the evaluation process again. After I finished that program,
Right.
and then they didn't come out with 100%. That it was 100%
Okay.
after that, which I was okay with that.
Yeah.
Went through that program in Denver, but I learned how to tell the providers what they wanted to hear. I was
Mm-hmm.
not being honest with myself or to my family.
Right.
I would tell the providers what they wanted to hear. I wouldn't give them my whole legacy of what I did, how I did it. I just said, "This is how I am. This is what I'm dealing with. This is what's going on in my life."
Mm-hmm.
It was a snowball effect. Is what it was. It became a snowball effect.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and then I end up 2017. Then I was doing some coaching with my son for soccer, racing him up through soccer, doing coaching, trying to get my spirits back up. And I started officiating sports, basketball, football, soccer, baseball, softball. being a line supervisor, everything else when I was getting out of the service, trying to
Mm-hmm.
see where I fit back in at.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and integration was rough. It was difficult, but after that program, it was not a good sensation for me.
Yeah.
Um, I even tried the federal prison. That was not a good place for me either.
Hmm.
Due to it wasn't more the inmates I was concerned about. It was the staff
Right.
I worked with.
Uh,
That was a big problematic thing for me, and it scared me more than anything. And I
right.
said, with my stuff that's going on with me, mental and everything, this is probably not a good place for me to be.
Hmm.
So I ended up stopping doing that. I resigned 6 months after I did that. Um, and then I worked for the Canyon City Park and Rec District, being their supervisor out of the parks, trying
Okay.
to get through and be outside more,
Yeah.
be more connected with people. um, that did work for a little bit. And then I was getting a little itch in my ear that I was not happy with what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted more. I wanted the adrenaline rush. I felt like
Right.
my marriage was already destroyed. I just felt like I destroyed everything. And what am I looking for in life? I was seeking
Right.
other women. I was not in a good place. I was in a very bad place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that happened for about 3 years. Um, the cool thing is about it, it's not cool at all, but there's a good thing I did learn. Um, I ended up meeting a girl that I knew back in school from
Mm-hmm.
6th grade, and ended up finding her again in my life. Um, and she basically showed me what I was missing from my marriage,
Mm.
like what love
Okay.
is. I didn't really know what love was anymore. I didn't know like I completely lost myself is what happened.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing that. I was still not being 100% truthful. I was still doing other things. I was drinking at the time
Mm-hmm.
pretty heavily on my medications. So
Yeah.
I was like a walking zombie, and I was not 100% at my core. I know that
Right.
for a fact. And then I also uh, then I ended up getting on SSDI and then kind of putting the work on the back burner to try to take care of me.
Right.
Well, that created too much time on my hands. That created two other thoughts. That created some more thoughts, dark
Mm.
thoughts. I don't want to be here. I
Yeah.
don't know where I fit into the civilian sector. Always trying to reintegrate, trying to figure out my purpose, trying to figure out my goal, my mission. I
Right.
can never figure that out until um, I went to Montana again, another inpatient program to Montana, the PTSD inpatient there. I went to Montana for it was another 8-week program. Um,
Okay.
it was
And
a
what was that program up there?
that was the same. It was a PTSD
Okay.
inpatient program, but I felt like I got more out of there and up there than I did in Colorado. I think because I wasn't in Colorado, so I didn't have all my friends and stuff to talk to. I took it
Right.
more seriously, um, just because of my location, and it was more driven in Montana than it was Colorado. It was more a hospital setting in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
In Montana, you were in a hospital, but you're in a different side of the hospital, so it didn't really. It felt like you were in a residential program, is what it was.
Right.
Um, but other than that, I got a lot out of it. I still talk to the vets today about what they went through. Still good
Mm-hmm.
friends with a lot of them. And
Now
that's
with that, sorry, with that program, do you think that that whole, you get out of it what you put into it type of thing? Do you think you were just putting more effort and things into it that helped quite a bit more?
I think so. It took me a little
Yeah.
bit to understand that. Um, it, I think so. I think it paid off for dividends. I think it did do its job. I
Yeah.
just didn't know what to do with it all. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in such a downward spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it was 2022.
Okay.
I made a decision. My grandmother died, which was my foster parent at the beginning.
Right.
She lived in Colorado. I already lost my grandfather. I already lost my dad when I was 13. So she passed
Mm-hmm.
away, and I said, all I have left there is my mom. My sisters have pretty much went. I have two sisters in Colorado, and then my other sister in Arizona, another sister in Illinois.
Right.
And I went to my grandmother's service, and I met one of my cousins there, and she lives here in Pensacola.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't know what to do. My marriage is wrecked. Grandma passed away. I've got to restart my life somehow or some way.
Yeah.
I then took. They said you need to get to Florida. Florida would be good for you, and so that's what I did. I ended up moving to Florida.
Okay.
Um, that was in 2022. I was by myself in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, let me give it a shot with Amy, my spouse at the time. I said, let me give this a shot. Let me see if it's going to work.
Yeah.
We flew out here. 6 months, I was doing the same crap again. I said, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. I've already been a detriment to what I did do. I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
repair it. I was an ass at. I was a mess, and it was time to work on me at that point.
Right.
And then so I sent her back to Colorado, and then she has a house in Colorado with my kids. I do pay all the expenses there. I pay on the house. I pay because she earned that while I was in the
Oh yeah.
service. She dealt with what I did. She married the military. That was her job, was to take care of me and to take care of the family. That was her job, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the least I can repay her, is at least giving her those options until she
Right.
comes out of her life. Um, we are still married to this day. We're just separated.
Okay.
My son did graduate this year. My daughter's
Nice.
24. So he just graduated high school. He's looking at doing some welding school.
Ooh.
And ultimately, I moved here and I couldn't be happier. I wasn't really working here yet. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up going to school at the Northwest Florida State College.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to school for my cybersecurity degree. I already had a degree in computer science, so I was trying to take it a little bit deeper and go for cybersecurity. I did
Right.
2.5 years. I did 2 years of that. I'm within 3 months to graduate for my
Oh, nice.
my AAS in cybersecurity. But I kind of put it off because I had something else come in front of me.
Okay.
That's where I thought the Lord was like really looking out for me, because I had things just happening all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I was living at this RV park, Leisure Lakes RV Park, here in
Mm-hmm.
Pensacola, Florida. And then I come to find out the system the manager and her husband were working here, and he wanted me to help with some maintenance around the park. So it started taking my rent credit, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
working that way, and then then it was getting more and more. So I was starting to help with the reservations, the phone calls. I said, "Man, I kind of like this."
Yeah.
Um, just learning the ropes. I've never been a property manager, never
Yeah.
expected to
Yeah.
be a property manager. I said, "There's a reason behind this madness, some way or somehow."
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
then, uh, then the other property managers pretty much packed and left with really
Okay.
not telling anybody.
Oh, wow.
Basically, they were a jerk to me because they made me take the phone from here to Colorado when I go to Colorado for my kids, and Amy's mom passed away. So I had the cell phone the whole time. I let the upper management know, like, I have the cell phone here. I was told to take it. I'm in Colorado dealing with family emergency. What do you guys want me to do? And then it was about a week or two. I got my butt reamed when I got back here because I was trying to be honest with myself. Let her know, hey, I don't think that was fair. You sent me with the phone. So within 3 weeks, they end up packing their stuff and moving. So
Wow.
then I met Bob Preston, which is our CEO of Unhitched RV.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's still a small entity, but it's growing. And Bob is a
Mm-hmm.
very, very good gentleman to work for. He's been
Yeah.
very understanding of what I'm going through. And then that's like the investors that they're veterans.
Mm-hmm.
There's Charles Green, which is our engineer. Matt Schreiner, he was our financial guy, which he's still a pilot, but he flew in the Marines. Same with Bob. So
Okay.
they all served at some capacity.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, man, that this couldn't happen any better. Fall into this position. Things were just clicking. Like I said, I don't know why they're clicking, but there's something going on, and I was feeling better about my life.
Yeah.
I was able to finally heal for myself. Still to reach out to my kids because I turned out pretty sour, and I know I gave them PTSD. I know I did with the gun going off in the house, giving them all
Oh, yeah,
kinds
for
of
sure.
fits, fighting with their mom, meeting another girl. It was a domino effect. It was bad.
Right.
And 80% of that was due to my service and what I did, especially as a WTB, dealing with families, dealing with mental illnesses, PTSD was the major part of that whole thing.
Right.
And I am trying to live my life now, having God on my side. I am now going to Bob Preston's church, which has opened my
Very good.
eyes. I learned it from A Hero when we were there 2 weeks ago about talking about the Lord, having spirituality in our lives. It's a huge thing to have to heal. You will never be 100% healed, but you can get the help. You always need a backup in your life, and trying to do it all your own or looking for other tools you can add, you've got to have a backup as well, and that's what I did learn.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then, so you started going to church there after we did A Hero. So, how did you get involved with A Hero?
So that circle keeps getting bigger. So Bob Preston, Robert Preston, Bob, it's Bob.
Yeah.
He knew Dave. And so he linked me. I asked Bob. This is why Bob likes me a lot, because I look out for myself to ensure that I'm taking the proper steps to make myself strong and do the job I can do.
Right.
So I reached out to him and I said, Bob, since you lived in this area, you know this area, do you know anybody that has equine therapy for vets? He says, well, I know an organization. I don't know if they still do or not, but give Dave a call or a text. So I ended up getting linked up with Dave. Dave heard my story and he says, man, why don't you just put you on an event with A Hero? And I didn't know what I was in for. That's how I was brought into that. And then now, even after A Hero, learning the powers from A Hero is just, that's such a blessing to look back on. Looking at the pictures, looking at what we did, talking to other vets, helping other vets through their problems, looking back like, man, I didn't think anybody would be dealing with the same crap I am. And you look at it, and it really, a lot of men, a lot of women are dealing with the same crap I am. So we're in this together. It's a very good community to let go with first responders. It don't matter if they serve it or not. They have some type of illness or PTSD or something they did. So you don't alienate them. They're fighting as much as we are. So learning them and talking and being a part of a great organization with A Hero, with Lee and Dave, my goodness, they do a fantastic job. Same with Aaron.
Absolutely.
They put in the work, they put in the time, and they care. And I also started going to a veterans breakfast, which I was not good with veterans groups before. But I met two stand-up good veterans from A Hero, and then also with Dave. Asked me to start coming to a breakfast out in Milton, Florida, at Ace's Restaurant. And so every Wednesday we get together at 7:30. There's about 18 of us there, Vietnam vets, Gulf War vets.
Oh, wow.
Korea. It's that you get all types of breed out there. So we all talk. It's all about the bondings you make through the whole, and allowing yourself to feel or allowing yourself to listen. And you can heal yourself that way as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you do that every week, every Wednesday, huh?
Yes, every Wednesday I do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, that group isn't associated with like an organization or anything. That's just a group of individuals that kind of got together.
That's a group of individuals that started in 2018 by Dave. In A Hero, but he doesn't really spin as A Hero on that organization with what we do. It's a separate entity, but he does link them up with A Hero as well. So
yeah, very cool. Well, I mean, you had a heck of a journey. I mean, there's a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but you've done pretty good. I mean, you're in a good space now. That's good.
Uh, yeah, it's taken me almost 10 years to get in this space again.
Yeah, yeah,
And talking to my kids, Melissa has two kids that live here, and then her daughter lives in Colorado. Trying to help her with her kids, understanding her situation.
yeah,
Um, it's very, very good. I feel good with what I'm doing now. I feel like I have purpose. I have purpose to live. I have purpose to drive or do whatever I need to
hmm
do every day, and I do it with a smile on my face. I used to not even smile,
yeah,
because I just didn't know what life was going to throw at me today. And there's still times that I still get in my cocoon sometimes, like I don't want to deal with this today,
hmm
but it's getting less and less.
That's
It's
good.
just the connection I met through this great organization, and also through my work. The great relationships I met, I'm dealing with is just like I said. Florida was the best thing for me to do. Colorado, there was some organizations in Colorado. They were not. I would say I've got better bonds out here than I did in Colorado.
Right. Yeah, and I would guess some of that has to do with maybe personality and those types of things. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
just throwing that
Well,
out there, but
yeah, I was not I was a loose cannon. So
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, you gotta, they always say you gotta want to be able to help yourself first, to get better, and it looks like you're there now, so that's
yeah,
good.
I'm still healing. Man, I love my music. Music is a very powerful tool to have to listen to get healed a little bit, or you hear something that just drives with you. I've just learned some good breathing breathing exercises, how to
Right,
cope with it, how to deal with the day, how to ground
very
yourself.
nice.
And without those tools, I don't think I would be having this big conversation today. So
Yeah, 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 for sure. Well, as we start approaching the end of a podcast, I have a couple of questions, rapid fire questions that I shoot out. I mean, yeah, you up for some questions?
yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. Number one, what was your proudest military moment?
Proudest military moment is when I had the Surgeon General give me a coin for standing up the WTB. There was like a few of us. It was a pretty good milestone to get um, from him. And then my patent of what I did in the WTU. I feel like I did a lot of my big work in the WTU.
Yeah, very nice. Now, what is your most embarrassing military moment?
Most embarrassing was when I was deployed in Iraq. I was hooking up to a dump truck,
Uh-huh.
and I was trying to cage the brakes on the back, and I had about a 10-pound sledgehammer, no, 8-pound sledgehammer, and it was on the bumper. And you got to start the truck to be able to cage the brakes. It's built up the air so you can cage them.
Right.
Well, the sledgehammer was facing, the head was facing almost over the bumper. So as he started the vehicle, my ACH just tipped back. The hammer came straight directly and hit me right in the center of the forehead. So
Oh, geez.
yeah, it knocked me unconscious for about 5 seconds, but it could have been preventable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that had to have been a little painful too.
Yes. Oh, it
Jeez.
was. It scratched my forehead pretty good. So
Wow.
yep.
Holy cow.
Yep.
Man. All right. In the zombie apocalypse, what would be your weapon of choice and what theme song would be playing?
Man, what theme song? What weapon of choice? 240 Bravo and
Yeah.
uh, what's that one song? ACDC Thunder. What is that?
Thunderstruck?
There you go. Yep,
Thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck.
Yeah, that's a good tune. I like
Yeah.
that tune. Yeah. All right. If you could describe your service, your time in service with an animal, what animal would that be?
I'm glad you asked that. I do have a service dog, and her name's Marley.
Okay.
I I remind myself of my dog.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of me in her.
Okay.
So that anxiety, she's a higher energy dog, like her father.
Yeah.
And I would say a dog, my dog.
Okay. Nice. Now, how did you end up getting your service dog? Was
It
that
was
through
through
the
Denver.
program?
It was a vet program. It was through a Denver organization. Train. It was a warrior warrior dog. I'm trying to remember the full name, but it was an
Yeah.
organization in Denver. There was also a spot where I bought her, where I was able to get her trained by them. But I bought her first, and then had her trained.
Oh, okay.
She's trained in 3 different drills. She's trained in PTSD is foremost, the number one. The
Mm-hmm.
second one is a suicide. Like she will literally knock a gun out of my hand
Oh, wow.
if she even thinks I'm gonna hurt myself. And
Yeah.
another thing is if I need help, she's gonna get help.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that's her 3 service things. She's right here knocked down on the couch right now. She's a mini Australian Shepherd.
Oh, I
So
love it. Yeah.
Mama, yeah, there she is.
Sound
So
asleep.
well, she's by her dad, so her dad's doing something, and she wants to make sure she's near. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but ultimately, that's what it's all about. So,
Right on. Man, that's really cool. All right. Which military service has the sexiest uniforms?
man, I'm gonna have to say the Marines.
I like it. I like it.
Them Class A, those dress uniforms, man, they beat ours.
They do
Although we
look
went to
sharp
the
though.
dress blues are sharp. I'm gonna still say the Marines uniforms are pretty sharper. So
All right. You know, I've got to say the new Army
the
pinks
cat,
and greens.
yep,
Is that what it is? Yeah, man, those look sharp.
those
And
are sharp.
I love the barracks cover that they have with it. It
Yes,
is
yes,
awesome. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
That's really
But
cool.
that's a good sharp looking uniform.
Yes, it is.
All right. And then which branch of the service is the best?
U.S. Army.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Oh.
So, you know, as we're coming to an end here, I always like to give a little time for like words of wisdom or something that you want to kind of share with the audience. And it's your time to say whatever it is you'd like to say.
It was an honor to do this with you, AJ. My spiritual encouraging to other veterans or anybody else listening: don't ever count yourself out. Don't ever think you can't do it, because there's always a will and a way and passion to do it. You've just got to find what you need to help and nourish and make you stronger for who you are.
I like it. Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome, man. Well,
Yes.
hey, thanks for coming on, Alan. Thanks for doing this, man. It's been cool. It was great meeting you,
Yes, sir.
and then being able to do this with you as well. You have a powerful story, and I think it's going to help a lot of people out there. So thanks for sharing it, and it's pretty awesome, man.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Well, I always end the podcast kind of the same way, and I talk about veteran suicide. But as I do this, for anybody out there, don't forget the VA has some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on that chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. Alan cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to a buddy you serve with, ask them how they're doing. And if they need that helping hand, please give it to them. All right, Alan, one last time. Thanks, man. Much appreciated. To all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.